Yes, happy to have Stormy with us today. Big fan of her. I met Stormy my very first time, probably 2016, I think.
Yeah.
We were hosting Women Grow events here in Michigan, and we hosted one in Lansing, and Stormy came and she was there for our event, and I got to meet her, and she's done some amazing things in this industry since. And so, and now the woman is running for U.S. House of Representatives. So,
Not the
Stormy,
US,
before we
just the state of Utah.
no,
Just the state of Utah. Yeah, that's right.
State of Utah. Okay, so sorry about that. So, really quickly before we go into you running for office, tell us a little bit about your story and why you got into the cannabis industry.
Hi, everybody. I jumped into cannabis because it was an emerging industry similar to that of e-commerce back in the day, where things that haven't been done before are really appealing to me. And when you're seeing a movement like this, like the end of a prohibition, the introduction of a medicine, all of the things that cannabis has been exposing, but even more interesting was the idea that the states were so far ahead of the federal government and continue to be, really. But it's just appealing. I couldn't sit on the sidelines and watch it happen without jumping in and trying to understand a little bit more about it and the people behind it and the steps it would take to get to federal, recognition, really.
Right, and how has it been for you so far, coming from e-commerce into such a highly regulated industry like this?
Well, it's really interesting in the sense of, when I joined in 2016, it wasn't just in these 4 short years, it wasn't so mainstream, right? It was still, there were 2 recreational states, I believe. And there was still a bit of a stigma. So I took a little bit of a punch professionally, just in the sense that I think people were quite shocked that I did it. But the industry itself has been, it's incredible to watch. To go from the mom and pops to the type of money that's entered the industry now, and the multi-state operators, and not only the amount of money that's entered the industry, but the amount of money that's burned through in the industry. To have seen, people that really push this through get squoze out of their business, or these ideas that I would see in the beginning, and these small businesses getting started, and they would not make it, and then to have others make it. So it's really been it's been incredible to watch all the way through, honestly. Now we're at, I think, 11 states that have adult usage, and that's really remarkable in such a short time.
I know, Rick, you'd have this at the tip of your tongue. How many more states are voting next week on it?
We have 5 states that are actually going to vote, but 4 of them will be voting for legalization, and 1 state just for medical.
Okay.
Yeah, the states are still outpacing the federal government. I don't know how often we'll see this in our lifetime, but maybe more often now that it's happened.
And then
what has it been like?
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if the feds deregulate it, then you're going to see big money come pouring in, I think. Big liquor, big tobacco, big everything will come in. If that happens, or how long that takes, remains to be seen. But I think it's just the beginning, actually.
Yeah, I do too. I still believe it's in its infancy, but that's because the feds can create whatever type of laws or structures around it. And it'll also be interesting to see who makes it from there. It could take another big injection of cash to adhere to whatever guidelines the federal government decides needs to be in place, overruling whatever the states have decided.
And what has it been like being a cannabis advocate in Utah?
Well, Utah is an interesting state. It's very conservative, very conservative. And however, people, the more that the science gets out, the more that the stories get out about it being a medicine. It passed the medical marijuana vote by 53%. And so I don't think that people are opposed to it. I think the stigma needs to be shaken off a little bit. They're not opposed to it as a medicine, which is why, federal regulation is important. We've got some interesting laws. The thing that happened in Utah was they proposed a proposition, Prop 2, and immediately after it passed, they went back to the boardroom on the Hill with special interest groups and compromised what the vote was. So they proposed one thing and then did another, which was reduced licenses. You couldn't homegrown. There was all kinds of things that happened with that. And that was really, it's an elephant, you got to eat the elephant. And so Utah has started with small bites. But the people voted it through. There wasn't fear there. I think their education is key when it comes to cannabis. And when you've got 90 years of stigma that continues to weigh it down, there's a lot of people whose first introduction to it could be as a medicine. And that's really important to keep pushing that because of the super stories that happen, And so it was a lot different 4 years ago. We've come a long way as a nation in regards to this plant in 4 years. And so is Utah as a state.
Stormy, you're a former CEO of High Times Magazine. I asked this question of Danny Danko on my program the other day. What is your impression of High Times Magazine's long, slow spiral into decline?
It's unfortunate that they've had to, they've adjusted their brand. They were purchased in 2017. You get an owner and executive chairman, I think his title is, that gets to set the tone for the company and gets to set what their next steps are. And that just is what it is. That's capitalism and business. So, what their 45-year history was taking forward this message and really boldly owning it and single-handedly almost. And then, someone buys a company and they get to do what they want. And that's the beauty of capitalism.
What do you think the outlook is going forward? I don't know. None of us know exactly what's going to happen in the national elections or even in the local elections, but it seems to be a blue wave is coming. Well, remains to be seen. We got a week to go. If that happens, where do you see everything going with the cannabis issue on the federal level?
It was interesting. I just saw an article pop up that said Schumer said if the Democrats take over the Congress, that it'll pass. I didn't get to read it all because the time was short, but I think that's a great possibility. It shouldn't be a struggle of political parties, this issue. We should be doing what's best for the American people when it comes to medicine. When we have the opioid crisis, and now who's the company that has to pay $8 billion? Everything's coming to light about some of these pharmaceuticals that we openly prescribe. It's like, here's some more pain pills, here's whatever you need, versus looking for more holistic and earthbound solutions. Plants are a beautiful thing, and it's time that we start addressing them seriously as a medicine. I do hope that the science that has existed in other countries gets to exist in ours too. And I hope that we keep the prices down when it comes to plant medicine. If we get into situations where pharmaceutical companies only, the big pharma companies, have to spend $10 billion researching something, and people aren't allowed to grow it, and they're not allowed to buy it in the form we understand today in dispensaries, then that could be a problem. But I do think that the science and everything that surrounds it needs to come to light.